And I was going to have Mr. Stubbe go first.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My questions are for Mr. Harris. Numerous employers have come forward with their stories about months and even year-long delays in processing their employee retention tax credits. In some cases, it's millions of dollars of these credits claimed by employers. How has the complexity of ERTC returns contributed to the backlog that employers are experiencing today?
Well, I think there's been a lot of factors that have contributed to it. I think we start with the way that we initially asked for the credit, which was just the filing in paper. I think that's the biggest contributor. Complexity has been a problem in many instances, particularly with the retroactive in coordination with PPP loans. So those of us that have tried to do things correctly, it was a complex calculation, and it took some time. I can't speak to how some of the mills dealt with this, because I think they've sometimes found shortcuts that we couldn't find. But I think the real issue started with the fact that we knew a lot of the problems in this program were predictable. They were things that we could see coming. Anytime you ask paper to be sent, as I said in my opening statement, into a building with nobody working and already paper backup, delay shouldn't have been a surprise. But complexity is a problem in all of the tax code, not just this.
In your testimony notes, there were suggestions were given to the IRS to improve the ERTC processing. Can you elaborate on what those suggestions were and whether the IRS is implementing those suggestions?
We made a couple of suggestions, and others did, that number one, recognizing the fact that these were going to be sent into build, we had to do paper, that there should be dedicated post office boxes, identifications, some way of prioritizing these claims above the normal workload, because again, we were in the middle of a pandemic. These were funds to provide lifelines to small businesses, and yet they just fell in. So we did not see any of the suggestions that we made taken. I know others had different things, allowing them to be claimed on a current year process return that could be filed electronically. So I think we just fell back into the way it was always done, and in that case, we had great delays.
Do you have any other suggestions that would avoid some of the backlogs that we've seen in the future?
Well, I think generally speaking, and again, if we have the time and we're not in a pandemic, we should always look for ways not to. Today, what we're doing is solving a problem. I would like to find ways with the IRS to prevent the problem. And I think one of the ways to do that is look for alternative ways. Take advantage of electronic filing. Take advantage of things that are currently being done, and be creative in terms of just being, this is the way we always did it.
If I might say something
Sure,
also to that. I mentioned the 7,200, and it came out, and I saw it was very fraudulent. It was a fax number in. In that case, the IRS did step up to the plate on it. But I think the other thing, the form being filed with just the number on it, see, there's startup business, but the main way to do this, there's two ways to do it. If they would have at least put a code on there and said one is based on gross receipts, they already have that information on the income tax return. Where all the fraudsters have come from is not from the gross receipts test and deficiency, which was the companies hurting most. If they'd have had two pipelines, just that in of itself would have moved the companies with the biggest losses, because there was no decision on that other than a calculation, and the audit part was just to verify with the income tax return. So all that got thrown in with the other, and then when the offer mills come along, but the most important thing, if they just put it to at least two codes, again, the company losing the most money would have been the first taken care of, which to me was very important.
Well, that kind of leads me to my next question was, how has the fraud and the scams impacted the backlog that employers are facing today?
I think, I guess I was directed toward me. I think the big issue is the fact that you're getting, all these quarters with a number changed and no reason why. So how do you audit something? And so what happens, the demand, and as I said in my printed statement, the reason why we're all here today is to get the right money to the right qualified employer, and we all want it to them faster. So I think the other thing would be is that Roger and I attend monthly meetings here in D.C. 3 years ago, I seen the problem coming, But I think what happened is when you're pulling off thousands of people in compliance over to take care of the EIP and the 1040 rebates and credits, then you've got a shortage of staff, and these papers are piling up. You know, it's amazing. For example, 1040X and I believe 941X also, even if you do that electronically, no, it's a 941X, you do an amended return and you think you're e-filing it, they actually print it out and scan it in.
No.
So, and the other thing I do want to say and follow what Roger said, in my comments, was we do have a new commissioner, and I think over the last few weeks they're starting to listen.
My time's expired. Thank you guys for being here today. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Mr. Stubbe. Ranking Member Pasquale.
Yes.